Corporations and the wealthy do not pay taxes. All taxes come out of the wages of the poor working man. This isn't terribly obvious, but I'll show you how it works. Corporations have to make a certain profit or else they go out of business. They regard taxes as a cost of doing business and increase their prices to compensate for these costs. The customer or consumer pays for those taxes. The corporation merely collects the money and passes it through to the government. The corporation really doesn't lose any money because of taxes. The rich make their money on interests and dividends. They don't invest so as to lose money. They demand a rate of return on their investments so as to compensate for things like inflation, taxes, and risk. A risk-free investment in the United States in the 1800s yielded about a 1 or maybe 2% rate of return. This is the natural rate. If we assume a 3% inflation rate and a 30% tax rate, we expect about a 6% nominal rate of return on bonds, about where it is. The wealthy charge interest so as to get a rate of return that they need to make their investments rational. And these interest rates determine the costs of credit for the consumer. The rich, like corporations, collect taxes and pass the money on to the government. By the way, poor people put money in the bank where they get a 3% rate of return. They always lose. There is another group of workers like doctors, lawyers, and accountants who have licenses, a monopoly granted by the government. A license is a license to steal. These people can charge pretty much what they need to make their labor profitable. So it turns out that corporations, the wealthy, and certain privileged workers set prices so that they can pay taxes and still make a lot of money. Poor people pay their taxes when they go to the grocery. A gallon of milk or pound of butter that should cost $1 costs $3. The landlord collects tax expenses and borrowing costs for the apartment from the tenant. The poor man is taxed when he pays the interest on his credit card. The poor have to do what work is available to them at the wages offered. They can't invest money profitably since the amounts are so small. And when they spend their earnings, they have to pay prices that compensate the more privileged for the taxes that the wealthy pass through to the government. The poor earn plenty, but have to pay artificially high prices necessary to pay for their government. It has always been so, and nothing will ever change it. Politicians like to get elected by promising that they will take care of poor people. They will take from the rich and give to the poor. As we have seen, this is a fraud, and the politicians know it. This also accounts for the observation made for the last 60 years or so that the incomes of the poor have not kept up with the generally rising income of other Americans. As the tax burden on Americans rises, the increased burdens of paying for the government are pushed down the economic ladder in the form of higher costs. In the swindle known as the welfare state, only poverty is redistributed.